Казахстане больше сотни вузов, а диплом о высшем образовании...
Kazakhstan is home to over 100 universities, yet for many, a diploma is still seen as just another box to tick, something to earn and then forget about. In 2022, the country established a dedicated Ministry of Science and Higher Education, and with it came a new minister determined to reform the sector. Our guest today is Minister Sayasat Nurbek, and we'll be discussing the transformations happening in Kazakhstan's universities and the achievements of Kazakhstani scientists. I am Uliana Ashimova, and this is The Profile, a Silkway TV project about the world we live in and the people shaping its future. This is the quality we're getting for $1,500. People say, why is the minister so focused on foreign universities? What about our own institutions? Won't these foreign universities be the ones profiting while we're left on the sidelines? We've set 3 key goals for ourselves. How can you tell a real scientist from someone who just claims to be one? Scientists have started to realize, hold on, I'm not the one choosing my research topic anymore. Now it's being assigned to me. Restoring trust in our own science is key. So when people say brain drain, I say great. That means we have brains to lose. Sayasat Nurbek, Minister of Science and Higher Education. He has led the ministry since it was first established. Hello, Sayasat Nurbek. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. While preparing for this interview, I came across a quote of yours that really stood out to me. A year ago, you gave yourself a failing grade for your work, not something you often hear from officials at your level. It was a remarkably candid assessment. I won't ask why you felt that way back then, but I'm curious, how would you rate yourself today? In government, we have the practice of self-evaluation at the end of an assignment, and at the time I spoke from the heart. I said my performance was unsatisfactory. Why? Because the ministry was still in its early days. We were just finding our footing, things weren't moving fast enough, and we lacked resources. But this year I think we're closing on a strong note. We've accomplished the key objectives we set out to achieve. A major legislative package on science and technology policy has been passed, and several crucial initiatives have been rolled out. Kileshek and Bolashak, for example. We've also reinstated bachelor's programs. On top of that, we've made significant progress in tackling the student housing crisis. Almost every region, including Astana, is now covered. The only place where we still have a dormitory shortage is Almaty. We've also introduced solid support measures for researchers, young scientists, professors and lecturers. Salaries have gone up by nearly 40%. And we've completely rethought our approach to science. We've launched major hackathons, and for the first time, we are working in direct collaboration with industry. So overall, I'd say we've wrapped up the year on a high note. There's also a real sense of momentum. 34 top international universities have committed to opening branches in Kazakhstan. That wasn't easy to pull off, but we're starting to see our vision of an educational hub take shape. For the first time, we've welcomed 30,000 international students this year. And here's an interesting shift. More of them came from Asia than from CIS countries. Among them, about 3,000 are from Russia. It seems like a major focus in Kazakhstan's higher education right now is bringing in international expertise in universities. Would you say that's the right direction? And is everything going as planned? It's definitely a key part of our strategy, but not the only one. We've put a lot of effort into attracting strong foreign universities to Kazakhstan, and that's very intentional. Right now, Kazakhstan has a very rare window of opportunity, and frankly, it won't stay open forever. That's why for the past 2 years, we've been working non-stop to make the most of it.
без устали бегали там по всему миру.
What do I mean by that? Across Greater Eurasia, our broader region, there are over 2 billion people.
Так называемой Большой Евразии, это наш большой.
This part of the world has the second highest birth rate after Africa, which means we're looking at an enormous demand for education.
Рождаемость именно в этом регионе идет после Африки, вторая в мире.
More than 8 billion young people under the age of 25 are seeking higher education alternatives, and that's where Kazakhstan has a unique chance to position itself.
Моложе 25 лет, проживающих вот непосредственно в
Many Kazakhstanis don't fully appreciate this, but higher education is a privilege.
получении высшего образования. Мало кто представляет, и вообще казахстанцы
Out of the world's 8 billion people, only about 350 million are enrolled in full-time university programs.
Земли образование высшее, полноценно, в очном формате получают не более 350 миллионов человек.
You mean worldwide? Yes, globally. So anyone in Kazakhstan with a university degree should consider themselves lucky. They say it's just gathering dust. Oh, absolutely. A lot of us have 2 degrees. We're so lucky. In Kazakhstan, access to higher education has always been pretty widespread. Maybe the quality isn't always top-notch, but getting a degree has never been much of a challenge.
Не очень хорошего качества, но было достаточно легко.
And that was just the norm, right? Exactly. On top of that, there's this deep ingrained mindset. I'll move mountains if I have to, but my kid is getting a degree. Absolutely.
Вот представьте себе вот этот огромный образование.
Whether they need it or not. Now, fast forward to today, we're looking at a massive shift in the global education market. Immigration laws are tightening, especially in Canada, the US, the UK, and the EU.
Пандемийная волна.
Post-pandemic restrictions are piling up on top of political cycles. Just look at what's happening in North America right now.
Вдруг
And suddenly, students from our region are scrambling for alternatives. And here's the thing, it's not just Kazakhstan.
на самом деле не только
A lot of countries have a real shot at positioning themselves as alternative academic hubs.
министерство, мои
Of course, there's been criticism, people questioning our ministry and me personally.
иностранными.
Why is the minister so focused on foreign universities? Why bring them in? What about our own institutions?
Отдаем, значит, каким-то не-
Some even claim we're handing over our education system to outsiders. You hear all sorts of takes. But let's be real, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And looking back at the past 2.5 years, I have zero regrets. We've brought in top-tier research universities, and they've accepted our invitation. And we're not just talking about major cities, we're setting up branches in every educational region, every provincial center. We've set 3 key goals for ourselves. First, to turn Kazakhstan into an education hub and tap into this booming market.
Хаб и работать на этот большой рынок, зарабатывать.
You say tap into the market, but won't these foreign universities be the ones profiting while we're left on the sidelines?
Вот. Поэтому из этих
Not at all. That's exactly why we structured it the way we did. Out of the 33 universities, only 5 are opening standalone campuses. The rest are integrating into our regional universities, mainly state universities. Which brings me to the second goal, using the expertise, curricula and research programs of these partner universities to transform our own regional institutions into world-class research universities. We had 2 options. One was the long, tough road, raising the quality of education from scratch, which would take enormous investment.
и очень тяжелые.
People need to understand, quality education isn't cheap. Building a top-tier international research university costs billions, and let's be honest, we don't have that kind of money right now. So instead, we're taking a more pragmatic approach, partnering with strong universities, merging them with our local institutions and using that collaboration to bring Kazakhstani universities up to a global level. And it's already working. The universities that hosts these branches are seeing real progress. Kozybayev University in Petropavl is now linked with the University of Arizona. Qazaqstani University has partnered with the University of Minnesota.
Мы уже видим,
Aktobes Zhubanov University is working with the Harriet Watt, Scotland's oldest technical university. East Kazakhstan Technical University in Öskemén is collaborating with the German Luban Workshop Consortium. Caspian Yesenov University in Aktau has also teamed up with major German institutions. Every strong regional university has been paired with a top international partner.
Каждому сильному региональному университету.
And how do you measure their progress? What makes you say they're improving? Rankings. Just look at the numbers. This year, a record-breaking 29 Kazakhstani universities made it into the Times Higher Education rankings. That's nearly a third of all our universities. Are any of the universities you just mentioned the ones partnering with foreign institutions among those ranked?
Те университеты, которые
Absolutely, and in fact, those partnerships play a big role in helping our universities rise. You could call it a smart move. By joining forces with established international institutions, our universities gain credibility, improve their programs, and naturally start climbing the ranks. But beyond rankings, these partnerships bring something even more valuable: world-class research. That's the third big goal we're focusing on, and it's already showing results. Take Petropavl, for instance. We've been collaborating with the University of Arizona for 3 years now, and this year they came to us with an initiative of their own. Northern Kazakhstan has incredibly fertile land. It's a major agricultural hub. The mayor's office has generously allocated nearly 100 hectares of prime farmland for research. The University of Arizona, which has one of the best agro-technical colleges in the world, saw the potential right away. Their dean, Shane Burgess, said, "Your soil is fantastic. Let us run genetic research here, develop better seed selection, improve irrigation, and so on." We've already hosted our first hackathon and session.
провели так называемый хакатон, сессию, все крупные.
So, did you actually plant anything this year? We're set to start after winter. In spring, we'll kick off the first round of experiments. What's really exciting is how strongly the business sector has responded, especially North Kazakhstan University, but not just them. Now the northern regions, including Kostanay and Akmola, are jumping on board, saying, if this kind of cutting-edge research is coming our way, it's a game changer. Sadly, over the years we've lost some valuable progress, especially in genetics and selective breeding.
Sayasat Nurbekovich, ну вот возвращаясь, например, к тому же самому северо-казахстанскому.
Sayasat Nurbek, circling back to the North Kazakhstan University, you've painted a great picture of how things are progressing there. But at the same time, we have to remember that students in the older buildings are still studying law, finance, history, journalism, and various technical fields. There's quite a mix of disciplines.
И кого там только нет.
Это боль.
That's a real challenge, but as always, it all comes down to money. Universities don't diversify like this because they want to, it's a financial necessity. The reality is, the more programs they offer, 40, 50, even 80, the more grants they can apply for, which increases their chances of securing government funding. That's exactly why this reform is so important. This year, the president laid the groundwork for a major shift in how we fund higher education. The core issue? Grant standardization. Right now, universities that rely on government funding are working with incredibly low grant amounts. National universities get a bit more, around 1.2 to 1.3 million tenge per student, but the average across the board is closer to 900,000 tenge. For comparison, in the US, training a single higher education specialist costs around $27,000 to $28,000 per year.
Извиняюсь, $28 тысяч.
Okay, but let's not compare with the US. What about somewhere a little closer?
$12 тысяч там, да.
In Eastern Europe, it's about $10,000 to $12,000. In the UK, it's $15,000 to $18,000. That really puts things into perspective. Our universities are expected to provide quality education for just $1,500 per student. That's why this reform is such a big deal. We've already started making legislative changes, and next year we hope to finalize everything. Our goal is to raise grant funding to at least $6,500 per student, bringing it more in line with international standards. But is the budget ready for that kind of increase?
Мы за счет вот того бюджета, который сейчас...
We're working on expanding the budget, and thankfully we have strong support from the president.
Стоимость гранта будет...
The plan is to increase grant amounts gradually. We're also introducing new financial mechanisms. You may have heard about Keleshek, the new education savings system. On top of that, we're rolling out subsidized student loans similar to those in Anglo-Saxon countries, along with differentiated grants. All of this will significantly expand funding for higher education. Our goal is to increase the average cost of training a specialist at least 5 to 6 times over. So, does that mean there will be fewer grants available? Yes, but the focus will shift to quality over quantity. Instead of universities spreading themselves too thin just to chase funding, they'll need to concentrate on their strongest 10 to 15 programs where they can truly excel. You know, sometimes when we get criticized, it really stinks. Right now, our team at the ministry is barely sleeping. We're working day and night, no weekends, no breaks. Just think about it. How prestigious is Heriot-Watt University? It's one of Scotland's oldest research institutions. James Watt, yes, that Watt, the one behind kilowatts, was one of its founders. Now imagine convincing such a renowned university to come to Kazakhstan, and not just to a big city, but to a regional one, to a regional university. How did you manage to convince them? A lot of personal effort. We had to show them that this region is the right fit for them. Few people realize that Aktobe has deep roots in metallurgy. During World War II, in 1943, the massive Zaporizhzhstal steel plant was relocated there as part of the Eurasian Resources Group. And there's a huge blast furnace that had been running nearly non-stop for almost 80 years, except for a brief pause in the early 90s. I personally took them there, walked them through it, pointed and said, "This is metallurgy in action." And what was their reaction? That was the moment it clicked for them. They had come in thinking Aktobe was just some small provincial town. But then they saw the scale of it, the industry, the infrastructure. It's a regional city, yes, but an industrial one. We guided them through factories, dressed in protective gear, explaining everything step by step. You've put so much effort into bringing international universities with their history and expertise into Kazakhstan's education system. But do you see any risks in this process, or are you convinced it's entirely beneficial? Of course, every project has its risk, but the benefits far outweigh them. Because earlier you mentioned the criticism you've faced. I imagine you've had to defend this initiative more than once. Absolutely. One of the main concerns people raise is, okay, the education might be top-notch, but what about values and cultural upbringing? We heard a lot of that in Petropavl, but in the end, none of the fears were justified. That was a big public debate, wasn't it? Yes, and it turned out to be completely unfounded. There were rumors, oh, these foreign universities are going to bring in Western ideology, LGBT agendas. But we make sure to negotiate clear terms with every university. Since we've made the accreditation process easier for them, we insist that key subjects like the Kazakh language and the history of Kazakhstan remain part of the curriculum. These universities work in partnership with local institutions, so there's no disconnect from our culture. Another big concern is brain drain. People say, sure, students will get a world-class education, a British degree, but what if they leave? What if they don't stay in Kazakhstan? But I see it differently. The reality is, the more skilled and highly educated someone is, the more in demand they are globally. And that's not a bad thing. Some of them will go abroad for better career opportunities, for specialized experience they can't get here. And that's fine. In the long run, they'll bring that expertise back home. So when people say brain drain, I say great. That means we have brains to lose. It's actually something to be proud of. Let them go, gain experience. Just recently, the Prime Minister announced the launch of a major venture capital fund.
совещание было.
During the discussions, we had Kazakhstani professionals from top investment and hedge funds in New York, Silicon Valley, and Europe join the conversation over Zoom.
В фондах в Нью-Йорке, там в Европе.
These are brilliant specialists working at the highest level,
Очень крутые специалисты. Я вот прям смотрел.
and you could see how genuinely engaged they were. This wasn't just some consulting gig for them.
Было видно, что они очень
They were invested in what's happening in Kazakhstan, sharing their insights, offering advice.
делились своим опытом, объясняли.
And by the end, some were even joking. Hey, if this really takes off, maybe we'll come back.
Что тебя говорили, слушай, а вот если сейчас все заработает, вернетесь? Я говорю, слушайте, классно было бы.
So even if they leave, they are not really disconnected from the country.
Что эти ребята уехали.
Exactly. Just because they're abroad doesn't mean they stop being Kazakhstani. We're also putting a strong focus on young researchers. Our Jaz Ghalum program funds 1,000 research grants every year, providing young scientists with a monthly stipend of 500,000 tenge for 3 years. The idea is to give them the resources to establish themselves, to develop their research so they can see where to specialize and how to advance.
Вот сразу вопрос, как
How can you tell a real scientist from someone who just claims to be one?
Сатпаев, 120.
Qazakh Satpaev put it best. This year marks 125 years since his birth, and he was the leading academic of his time, the father of our science, a true elder in the field. He once said something very simple but powerful. Real science is the kind that works hand in hand with industry. It helps production evolve, move to new technological levels, and in turn, it draws inspiration from the very industries it serves. Science with a strong practical focus, that's what truly drives progress. Oh, so that explains why you send scientists into production facilities. You mentioned that before. That's right, we're making some major changes to the system, tough, radical changes. And it's been a painful process for many of our scientists. Really? I thought they'd be excited about it, no?
Болезненный процесс, поэтому вот мы сейчас решили.
Not always. It's been rough. But here's the thing, our foundation in fundamental science is actually quite strong. Some of the old Soviet research schools are still holding their ground, and they're solid. We've got brilliant minds in engineering, mathematics, modeling, chemistry, metallurgy, mineral processing. And the results are real, not just theoretical. That's why 2 years ago we launched a separate funding program for fundamental research. Now, institutes submit a 3-year research plan and receive stable, long-term funding.
Базовое финансирование получают.
So they stay in their labs, doing research. Makes sense.
Там прям сильно бегать деньги.
Exactly, they know their base funding is secured, so they're not scrambling for money every day. Any additional grants they win are just extra resources for their institute. But for the most part, we're shifting research institutes and universities, especially universities, toward applied science. We take key universities and research centers and send them straight to a major production facility for a week. We negotiate directly with production facilities. You negotiate with them. Yes, we go directly to them, with the shareholders, sit down and say, the ministry itself. The ministry itself. I personally visit these factories all the time, and we tell them straight up, look, we're not freeloaders, we're partners. Here's the deal. You give us access to your facility, we do a full assessment, and we identify critical problem areas that need scientific solutions. And we've already uncovered a whole range of issues that science can help solve. So, has any of these issues actually been resolved?
После этого мы садимся в специальное обучение.
Let me give you an example. Once we identify a problem, we bring in specialists for a session where we translate industrial jargon into scientific language, clearly define the issue, and then present it as an official research task to the Higher Science and Technology Commission.
Эту тематику, так называемую научно-техническую.
And that's where things get really interesting. At this point, scientists start to realize, hold on, I'm not the one choosing my research topic anymore. Now it's being assigned to me. And not just assigned, I have to work directly with industry professionals to define it.
Теперь пойти и сформулировать ее.
And that's exactly how you tell the difference between a real scientist and someone just pretending to be one. A real science isn't someone who just publishes papers, throwing around theories and fooling themselves, and everyone else. They won't be able to solve the problem.
Какие-то статейки пишет, нам глаза замыливает и себе.
But a true scientist will fight for a solution, no matter what. And in the end, it's the company that truly benefits.
решение. А огромный плюс получает предприятие.
Sure, the benefits are clear, but what I'm wondering is, are we anywhere near a happy ending in this story? Well, you asked for a concrete example. Here's one from last year. We've got newer cases, but I haven't checked in with production yet. So Kazakhmys, the Balkhash copper smelting plant, has been smelting copper since 2001. The process leaves behind slag, a heavy, dense byproduct full of lead, which makes it incredibly heavy. Yeah, it's heavy.
Драгметаллы, серебро.
It also contains precious metals, silver, tantalum, so it's a pretty valuable material. Plus, there is a small amount of a rare earth element called selenium. Got it. It's a fascinating and highly valuable metal. And I bet it's expensive too.
Вот этот кусочек продается.
It sure is. A kilo of this slag smelt sells for about $5. For years, mining and metallurgy companies either sold this waste for next to nothing or just let it pile up in landfills. Then our scientists at the Institute of Metallurgy and Ore Beneficiation in Almaty, one of our oldest research institutions, came up with something revolutionary. They developed a completely new method, unlike anything in the world. Instead of using the traditional toxic acid leaching process, they figured out a way to extract selenium through distillation. And what did they get? Selenium with 99.5 purity. Oh, but it has a completely different weight, doesn't it? What we're talking about here is 99.5 pure selenium, and the price, it's already at $150 per kilogram. This is exactly what we mean by the value-added chain. Moving from one stage to the next always brings an economic impact. In this case, a 15-fold increase. That's a pretty fast economic return, but how is the scientists' work funded? Through research grants. And you provide those. For this time, instead of funding research topics, scientists wanted to explore, and we said, here's a real-world problem, find a solution. Do you think we're getting close to the point where research grants aren't coming from the Ministry of Science but directly from the industry? When, say, Kazakhmys comes in and says, here's the money, fix this for us. Kazakhmys is already funding the next grant themselves. Now we're working on ultra-pure selenium. For me as a minister, this is about more than just science and funding. It's about changing the way people see science. Let's be honest, right now neither the public nor businesses really trust it. But think about it. Back in the Soviet era, and even today, in many developed countries like the US, science is something people believe in. Look at pop culture. Who are the heroes? Scientists. Every major comic book character, they're all scientists. Bruce Banner, the Hulk. And they're the ones who changed the world. Exactly. Science is at the core of everything. Kids grow up knowing that the real heroes are the scientists, the visionaries, the Elon Musks of the world, who push the limits of what's possible. Honestly, my dream is to make Kazakhstan believe in science again. To bring back its prestige.